it's Naya. Welcome back to Naya with a Smile. Today I finally have my wrap up. I want to say it's my wrap up for June, but I'm pretty sure it spans a little into May. But we're just gonna say it's a June wrap up, you know, just like June, a little bit of May, a little bit of July. 1, 2, 3, a 4, a 5. You guys, whenever you count, do you guys like count like in the Tootsie Roll commercial? Okay, never mind. 4, 5, 6, 7, and listen to 1 audiobook. 8 books! Ah! Super excited to talk about a lot of these books. So far, this past like month and a half-ish has been a really good like reading month for me. And I'm just really excited. Let's get talking about books because I got 8 books to talk about. And they're all pretty dang good. First book I'm gonna talk about is the Fiction Faction Book of the Month for June, or was the Fiction Faction Book of the Month. The book we read for June was Furyborn by Claire Legrand. Now, this video is sponsored by Sourcebook. Okay, so in this book, there is this legend, myth, foretelling that there's gonna be 2 queens that will arise in this world. There's gonna be a sun queen who brings light and goodness, and there's gonna be a queen of destruction and bad things. This prophecy, right, of these 2 queens. And when I first went into this book, I didn't know that it was gonna be, we're gonna be following like 2 storylines. That's why it was a little bit confusing for me in the beginning. But once you get into it and once you like understand sort of the concept of it, it's really, really cool. So we're basically following 2 characters, right? Riel, who has just released or shared with the world that she is an elemental magic wielder, and in this world, or in the old world, people were able to wield magic, but usually it's just 1, maybe 2 elements that they could wield. Our main character, Riel, she can wield all 7 elements of magic, which makes her one of the prophesized queens. They just don't know which one, so they don't know if she's gonna be good or bad. To figure out if she is one of the queens, the king of the old world puts her through these different trials to try and figure out if she can actually control all elements. That is one of the timelines. The second timeline we're following is Eliana. Now this takes place thousands of years after Riel has lived, so she's dead. We're following 1 character, and we're also following the character that's like the myth or the legend. I've never read anything that's taken place on 2 drastically different timelines. Usually it's like 5 years ago, but this one's like, no, this was like 10,000 years ago. It's really cool. I'm gonna give this book probably a 7 out of 10. Like I said, I took off a few points just because for me, at least in the beginning, it was a little bit hard to get into. It was definitely, I love, like, anytime I go into a fantasy book, I'm always really excited because there's so much to learn and there's so much about the world that I don't know about. But this world was definitely huge, and I felt like the beginning, the world could have been introduced like a little bit better. But once you get past like 100 pages, then it's like, okay, I know what's going on. This is really cool. This is really, oh my god, there's a prince. The next book I read, I feel like I have talked about this book so much already. Some of you guys are gonna be like, Naya, you're bringing up this book again. But I just love it so much, and technically I didn't talk about it in a wrap-up yet, and even though I made a whole video about this author, which I will link up here, and I've mentioned it in various vlogs and just so much, I think like 4 or 5 videos at this point, but I love it so much, and we're gonna talk about it again, and I promise I'll make it short for everyone who's already like is over me discussing this book. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. What can I say at this point? It's amazing. This is one of my favorite books of all time. The video you guys are gonna see coming next week is gonna be my top 10 favorite books in the world of all times, and you guys will see me talk about this book for like a 10th millionth time. Vicious by V.E. Schwab is an adult novel. It's freaking amazing, you guys. This book follows 2 main characters. Now they are like mortal enemies. Like if there is a definition of mortal enemies, it's these 2 characters. You know, like I feel like people use that term a lot, like they're mortal enemies, but no, these guys like want to kill each other badly. So we start off with the book, right? You don't know why these guys want to kill each other. It's really weird. Like the book starts off where there's this guy digging in a graveyard. Really weird. You get into it, you start getting this backstory every other chapter about what happened 5 years ago that made them mortal enemies now. There's superpowers in this book. This is a superpower, super villain, superhero book. It's just amazing. It's amazing. This has to be, I think, in my personal opinion, V.E. Schwab's best book. I've read 5 of her books. It's fantastic. It's fast-paced, it's suspenseful, it's filled with meaningful characters that, like, who cares about the plot? These characters are so incredible. You just like don't, you can have them like go to like, I don't know, like put them on a building and then just have them talk for the whole book and it would still be interesting. That's how solid and fleshed out her characters are. But okay, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I made a whole video. I'm gonna link up here why I love this author and why I love this book specifically. So if you wanna check it out, you should go and do that. But this book was so good. Okay, the next book I read this month was Sabriel by Garth Garth Nix. I specifically picked up this book because it is Sarah J. Maas, one of my favorite authors in the entire world. We're not gonna get into it because I love her as well. But it's one of Sarah J. Maas's favorite books. She constantly talks about it in interviews and stuff because I stalk her on the internet and watch her interviews because she's my favorite author. But anyways, irrelevant. We're not gonna talk about my stalking of her. But anyway, so Sabriel is the book that got her into reading and got her into writing, and so I finally picked it up. I have the two other books on the shelf, like right up there. I don't know if you can see them. I read this book, I loved it, I lived it. Like, I can see how Sarah J. Maas would love this book. It is that classical fantasy book in which it's like every chapter something's happening, someone's dying, someone's coming to life, someone's getting powers, someone's wielding a sword. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like one of those books, but it's not fast paced to where it's like, oh my god, like too much is happening. It's like every chapter is like the first chapter of a book, if that makes any sense. Every chapter is like one of those chapters that just sucks you in, and you finish the chapter and you're like, I need to read the next chapter. I don't know exactly like what time period. It's definitely like a semi-modern world on one half of this continent that these people are on, and then on the other half of the continent is like this old magical fantasy kingdom. And it's the craziest thing because we started reading this book and our main character, Sabriel, she's in school, and it's like a relatively, I would say like a 1950s style school. I don't know, I couldn't pinpoint like the time period. Now, the old kingdom in this book is where all the magic is. It's very dangerous. Everyone who lives not in the old kingdom like doesn't go to the old kingdom. There's like a giant like fence, and they're like, okay, no one goes past here, it's dangerous. We follow our main character, Sabriel. She is the daughter of this sort of being. So basically in this world, there are different gates in death. So when you die, say your soul only goes past like the second or the third gate, you can still be brought back, which is really cool. And so you don't technically like die until you cross over this sort of in-between, or you pass through all of the gates and get past that last gate, and then you're officially like dead and you can't come back. So as you can imagine, this poses serious problems in this world, right? If you kill an evil creature and it's not dead, then it can be brought back, which is really dangerous. So in this world, we have this creature, this being that basically is like the gatekeeper and kind of makes sure that the people that need to stay dead are actually dead, and people that didn't deserve to die can be brought back. And it's really cool. He has all these bells that he uses to summon souls, and it's really cool. He's sort of like this Grim Reaper, angel of death creature thing. I don't know, I'm trying to compare it to something, but it's such a unique like being creature thing that it's hard to describe. But anyways, Sabriel is the daughter of this person, and she is being trained. She lives in like the more modern side of the world, not the old kingdom. So her father ends up going missing and is stranded in death behind a gate that he can't get past, so he can't come back to like the real world. So she has to go and venture and get him, and it's like this huge adventure. As you can see, the book isn't very long, but you finish reading it and you feel like it was 600 pages long because so much happened. Like, it was so good, super fast paced. Like, this is the kind of fantasy book I hope to write one day, in which it's just like the characters are so lovable and so funny, and there's talking animals and cats, and you can definitely, like, I was reading this book and there are several parts where I'm like, oh my god, Sarah J. Maas used this idea in like her series that she writes. So if you're a Sarah J. Maas fan, I highly recommend you read this, because you'll read it and be like, I can definitely tell Sarah J. Maas was inspired by this book, because a lot of ideas and concepts and like talking doorknobs and just like things like that she like brings into her other series, which is like really cool. The next book that I read that was so good, oh my god, this book. Okay, you guys, I made a whole vlog on this, so again, this might be a little redundant or repetitive for anyone who's watched my other videos. I'll link the vlog up here, but the next book I read was A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. And okay, so in that vlog that I made, I did not vlog myself reading like the last 200 pages, I think, which I highly regret, because the plot twist, or like the ending, the cliffhanger, I can't go into detail, I don't want to spoil you guys, but the ending, those last 200 pages, like, I have not felt that like, oh my god, since I think I read like Delirium, like the ending of the Delirium by Lauren Oliver, like that. The impact of that is like what I can compare the ending of this book to. Like a solid 10 out of 10. ending. Like, one thing about fantasy books is like, I'm always scared that the second book in a series will kind of like suffer from middle book syndrome a little bit, and which is kind of just like a floater book where you're like, oh, nothing major is happening. Well, this book felt like a first book. It was so good. It was amazing. It was just, now that I know the world well, reading this book was just like, it was just, I flew through it. I highly recommend this book. It's another high fantasy book, but very, very easy to get into. I know it's super hype, but I definitely feel like it is a series that deserves all of the hype. I want to read the next book, which is A Reaper at the Gates, but I feel like I'm not ready for this third book, especially because now I know it's not the last book in this series, and there's gonna be another one after it. I don't know what else Sabatahir can do. She constantly like one-ups herself. It's amazing. Next book I read is actually a poetry collection, and I talked about it a little bit again in my vlog. Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace. Now I just hauled this book as well as the second book, which is The Witch Doesn't Burn. In this one, like the best title. These are poetry collections and they're so incredibly good. Like, this is something like I saw on Instagram, I think, first. It was just like one of those books that ended up becoming, or one of those poetry collections that ended up becoming really, really popular. And this, along with, what was that other poetry collection I really want to read? There's one other that I want to get, but I saw this and I was finally like, oh, I need to pick it up. I need to read it. And it was on sale at Target. I'm like trying to cover the sticker because I can't get it off. So good. This is one of the realest poetry collections I've ever read. So many topics that I feel like are so relevant, especially today, is finally being like so honestly written about in this poetry collection, and you will cry. Like, it is just, it is so relatable and it's beautifully written. I found out she was actually like a Tumblr poet, which I didn't know was a thing, or she like used to write and publish her poems on Tumblr before making a collection, which I think is super cool. Definitely recommend it if you're someone who's like new to poetry or wants to get into it but doesn't like reading older poetry, or like the poetry they have you read in school, which I think is really good. Classical poetry is great, but if you want something that's more modern and more relatable, I highly recommend The Princess Saves Herself in this one. Also, the title is fantastic. Next book that I have finally finished, I just want to say to all my Patreons that are watching, I apologize. It has been 2.5 months now and I have not even made my first Patreon video post. That video will be going up today, and that is the vlog for The Flame in the Mist, which was absolutely fantastic. I apologize for the video being up so late. It will be up today, and for July I will have everyone choose 2 books to make up for the one that I missed in June, and then from there on it'll just be normal scheduling of a book a month, but I'm gonna be doing 2 just to make up for June, since June was super busy for me and I just did not like get that video up, so I really do apologize. But that video will be up. It's super long, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. The book that I read was Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. If you guys remember, I read The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh and I did not like it very much. I had a lot of problems with that book, and like I said before, like, I'm someone, if I don't like one book by an author, I won't just like not read any of her other books. I will always give that author like another chance and like check out her other books, because yeah, like if just because I won't like one book doesn't mean I won't like all of her books. So I picked up this one and this book was incredible. Like, Renee Ahdieh, like, I didn't like Wrath in the Dawn, but this book was a solid 10 out of 10 book. It takes place in Japan, following our main character Mariko, and she is the daughter of a samurai. And so back in this time period, the daughters of samurais, or any sort of children of a samurai, was considered like almost royalty, but they were very upper class. And so she's lived like a really good life, and her brother is known as the Dragon of Kai. He has a reputation, he's a very good swordsman. So anyways, so she's on her way to get married to this prince. So her character gets attacked by the Black Clan, which is like this deadly clan that's known for like killing people and like doing all this bad stuff. And she ends up being the only one to survive and lives. And instead of going back and trying to like find her parents and her brother, she goes and pretends to be a boy to infiltrate the clan and get back at them, which I think is so cool. And it's kind of like a Mulan sort of thing. And she ends up realizing the Black Clan isn't what she thinks. She also ends up kind of falling for someone, and it's so good. Like, this is, again, another really fast-paced book, but I think, like, for me personally, I study Japanese. I've been studying Japanese for almost like 3 years now, and so they use a lot of Japanese words in it, and for me, I was able to understand like everything they were saying when they were like using the Japanese words, and so it was a really nice experience for me when reading it, because I'm like, I know what this means, I know what this is, da, 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 da. Anyways, it was highly enjoyable. I finished the book, and I have the second book, and I will be continuing on with the second book in the series because I want to see where it goes. I definitely fell in love with Mariko and some other male main character who I'm not going to spoil for you. The last book that I listened to, which is one of my probably most highly recommended audiobooks to you guys now, I listened to this book because I follow Amber Khan, or The Quietest Revolution, if you guys know about her. She is an astrologer as well as many other things. She's just like that kind of person that is just has her toe dipped into everything. I feel like she's just like this all-knowing being, but she's really amazing. She's an astrologer. If you're into astrology, I highly recommend you check out her channel. She's like one of my favorite people in the whole world. She, in her astrology videos, talks about this book a lot, and it's called Cybernetics by Maxwell. Oh shoot, what is his last name? I'm gonna put it up here so you guys can see. But this book I wouldn't really put under the category of self-help, but it's kind of like, okay, I guess it is like more of a self-help book, but it's definitely like a science-based book in which they talk about the idea of oneself and how your idea and your perception of yourself literally affects everything in your life. And this is one of those books that it's not just, I guess, someone's own opinion. It's backed by science and research, and it's just it's an amazing book. It'll definitely like transform what you do in your day-to-day life and how you think and your thought process, and it is just a very, very informative book that I feel like everyone needs to read. Those are all the books that I read this past month and a half-ish. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, keep reading, and I'll talk to you guys later.